Thanks, Steve. As Steve mentioned, the greatest challenge our state is facing is reducing emissions that is related to transportation sector. The transportation sources are the largest emitters of greenhouse gas in California as well as the Bay Area, contributing roughly 40% of the total emissions. When we take even a closer look, 4/5 of that 40% of the transportation sources are from cars and light trucks. This means that almost 1/3 of all greenhouse gas emissions are from those types of vehicles. Based on this fact, we realize that we have to be more aggressive in the area in order to make a difference. The state is focused on 3 interrelated components, sometimes called a 3-legged stool in the transportation-related greenhouse gas reduction. The first one is to make cars cleaner. As Steve mentioned, the PANELISTS bill, which is the Clean Car Standard, requires that new vehicles contribute to 30% less emission by the year 2016. The second is to make fuel burn less carbon intense, with a 10% reduction in carbon intensity by the year 2020. And the third is to promote the kind of communities that leads to less overall driving. And that essentially is what SB 375 seeks to do. SB 375 was passed into law in 2008 and seeks to reduce emissions to land use and transportation patterns. It created a framework that has 4 main components. The first is to require the Air Resources Board to set greenhouse gas reduction targets for passenger vehicles in 18 metro areas for the years 2020 and 2035. The second component is that it affects in the affected region and in partnership with local government, the bill is required to set strategies on what land use and transportation measures will be used to meet the target set by the Air Resources Board. Third, the bill is an incentivized it incentivizes regions and local governments to adopt and implement good plans. The bill also adds provision to CEQA by streamlining the review process for certain housing and mixed-use projects consistent in meeting the targets set by the Air Resources Board. And fourth, the bill will better integrate housing patterns with transportation planning by identifying residential areas needed that will house the population as part of the SES. SB 375 sets an aggressive timeline. Right now, the focus is on target setting. Data is being changed from the regional agencies to the Air Resources Board. The Air Resources Board will issue a draft target by June 30th, which is only a couple months from now, and then the final targets by September 30th, which is 3 months after the draft targets. Prior to setting targets, the RTAC sent recommending factors to be considered and methodologies to be used for setting targets. As required by the SB 375, most of last year's work had been basically the work of the RTAC. The RTAC recommendations were adopted in September of 2009, and the Air Resources Board will continue to exchange info with the MPOs and the Air District for target setting. The Air Resources Board will identify an initial statewide target number and then set draft targets for each of the region and then final target numbers for each of the region. The MPOs and local governments must begin planning to meet the targets in the next RTP and housing allocation. And the next MTC Regional Transportation Plan is slated to be adopted in 2013. Ultimately, the success will take place in the local and regional levels. The phrase, think globally and act locally, could not be more true now. The Air Resources Board recognized the uniqueness in each of the regions when setting these targets, and thus local input and identified opportunities for regions can be provided to the Air Resources Board. Going into target setting, the Air Resources Board realized that the targets needs to be reasonable yet aggressive and ambitious enough to in order to achieve substantial goals. Striking a balance will require the coordination between local, regional, and state, as well as from the public. Some of the benefits are less traffic congestions, more efficient transit, improved public health, better access to jobs, a healthier economy, improved quality of life, protected habitat, and conservation of land, energy, and water. This is a quick overview of the timeline. You do have a more detailed timeline that is your 11 by 17 sheet of paper. So as we noted, the timeline has already begun. This chart shows that in September of last year, RTAC released its methodology report and recommendations. Last month in March, there was a target setting workshop, and currently in April, elected officials will be convening at the ABAG General Assembly, which is next week, April 22nd, and there will also be the first of many region-wide, area-wide working groups, workshops. All these are open to public. The General Assembly, there is a fee to attend that event, but the RAWG workshops are free, and I would recommend, if you're interested, to attend those. The regional advisory working groups, they are meeting monthly, and the first meeting is on April 28th, and all the meetings are going to be at the Metro Center in Oakland. Finally, the draft targets will be released, as I mentioned, in June, with the final targets slated to be released in September. Now, if you need additional information, I know we do have 2 more speakers. You could get from the Air Research Board website, our website at ABAG, as well as the MTC website. So at this time, we'll look more at the county level information, and Steve Ross will come back here and give this presentation.